Well, this is a sample of a budget template that I've done different consultants I've worked for different films and studios. Now, what you see here is you see it starting out with the bottom line cost for a film. Now, I've done this templates in several different budgets for both TV and movies and other entertainment projects, cable, whether it be cable shows and so on. It also can be other types of templates for that, but what this is one we created for specifically a certain company, but it can be expanded into used into several different industries or any types of entertainment. So, but to start out with, what you see here is the rate, pre-production, and the shoot, post-production, and production expenses, and then the unit type that are used throughout on the rate side of a miscellaneous type of different types of fees. Now, to start out with, just to say this is the beginning for a film. In the film industry, the above the line costs start out with the written and script story section, where the important areas there are the script editors, story editors, writers, and story rights. Now, what this is, and I'm going to go through them all, is what the expenses are. So I'm not going to go through each individual calculation, how to get individual calculation for what the writer fee, how to calculate all that out. It's going to be the actual what they are, and then the rate of what we charge, and so on. So, like I mentioned earlier, that's the first section, and then you go into the development. In the development, there's the development funds that paid to the producer, the director, the writer, the script editor, overheads, and several other subcategories. Then you get your producers, your executive producers, co-producers, your associate producers, line producers, and so on. And then your director fees are your assistants, your fringes for them, and so on. Now these are the main expenses, higher salary type fees. And so what this client wanted was the expenses for their offshore, if it is offshore, but the main expenses for the airfares and accommodations per diem, because they're more expensive. Now, travel and tourism not tourism, but travel expenses and accommodation are going to be in a separate category in this budget template down at the end for everybody else, but these were quite higher, so this client wanted them underneath everything that are expenses for these people. The next area of the personnel is the principal cast, the offshore cast, and those fees associated with them, and their fringes and their expenses, and then main cast members and their fringes broken down by each person's name. And so then you have your total above the line fringes, holiday pay, crew cast, superannuation of the crew and cast, breaking down a certain percentage level for both those fees. So then you have your total above the line costs are going to be right here. So after you get that, you start doing the below line costs. This is where your production comes in. In your production department, you're going to have the production area of the units, fees, and salaries, the production management, supervisors, secretaries, assistants, runners, and so on. And then you're always going to have some type of accountancy, whether it's a big film or a small film, where it has the financial controller or production accountant if it's a bigger film or not. Assistant director's script supervision is the next area, where you got your first director, second assistant, all the way down to your script supervisor continually. And then your camera crew. Your camera crew, you have your clapper, loader, so on, sound crew, lighting crew, grips crew, costumes crew, makeups crew, hairdressing crew, art director department, whether it's a large one. You can have, everything from an art director, production designer, all the way down to a props buyer. If it's a small one, it's not going to have that many. Actions crew, vehicle if needed, livestock crew if needed, animal assistants, so on. Your construction crew, usually you have the carpenters and laborers broken down into special effects crew, your visual effects crew if those needed, and of course OSHA, your police, safety, and so on. And the next area is the tuition technical advisors, where you got your tutors of cast and dialect translators and those type of personnel. And your second unit for backups, and then offshore if you're doing an international type film. And then your overtime and loadings for all the crew above. So your total units and salaries fee subtotal is going to go right here, adding on to the above the line cost. So next you're going to have the fringes and workers' compensation. You got your holiday pay, superannuation, workers' comp, casting and crew, the individual fees that they have to go through when they're actually doing in the production, audition expense, the readers' fees, the screen tests, your cast principal personnel, your cast supports like singers and dancers and musicians, your stand-ins and doubles if needed, your stunt coordinators, actual stunt performers, the extra city or county extras, and then you have your total subtotal for the casting crew. And you got your costumes, your equipment hire, principals, extras, and makeup and hairdressing, your locations, which your permits, rentals, and fire, safety, traffic, and parking, your stage rentals, whether that's going to be what other fees you shoot, your sets and properties construction, your props and set dressing, your action and prop vehicles. With action vehicles, if you're going to purchase them or hire them or rent them and so on. Your livestock, actual getting the equipment that's needed to make them. If you have any animals or background or lead animals, depending on the type of film or movie or TV or radio, whatever you're doing in the entertainment industry. Special effects, if that's needed, your total materials, permits, and so on, weapons, purchases, and need of that. Your visual effects, if that's needed, animation, for this is obviously a shoot only because it's just in the production environment itself. Your image, how you're capturing it, everything from your negative to positive stock, your aspect ratio, your actual processing, transferring the sound of that, any other miscellaneous your rush screenings, the image, and then next second major section of the image is the capturing of the transfers and rushes of the HD stock and the lab couriers, existing footage, if it's new footage, if it's the stock and archive, if you're going to keep it for a long time, so you have the access fees, additional rights if it's older, if there's other things that you want to use, and those all have their own miscellaneous unit items charged, if it's per hour, per item, per second, and per roll, and so on. And equipment stores, camera equipment stores, and these are the camera accessories. If you have any second unit, steady cam accessories, also sound equipment, lighting equipment, grips equipment, unit facilities, stores, your vans and trailers goes in this area. If you have other miscellaneous items, safety equipment and stores, your rentals and storage, if it's office rental or construction rental, to storage base, costume department, makeup, so on. And here's your travel and transport, as mentioned earlier. This is for your cast and crew members mostly, because they're all going to have the same type of rate fee, same type of charges as opposed to the main guys up top. And you also have to have your vehicles charge and transport and freight and all the other items and props that you need to bring in from wherever, if they're being specially made or not. Your accommodation for the cast and crew, obviously per diem items, and your insurance. You got your public liability, multi-risk, personal accident, and then if you have an office expenses that you're going to be back to where you're putting the whole film together and going through all the needed office items to make the film. After shoot, it's always thrown in if you're doing an international product. So your total production costs are going to be then the next major subtotal added on to the previous one. So the post-production is after the production, which is editing. So you have your picture editing, your sound editing, whatever dialogues needed in that, your overtime of that, because usually it's going to take a lot longer than as planned. Your post-production rentals and office expenditures for the editing people itself, their editing supplies, and places where they're actually doing the editing. The post-production travel, that's going to be needed for personnel that needs to, redo editing or go in and do editing and image post-production, whatever the after effect of re-editing the images themselves to make it fit into the perfect film itself, and negative matching your titles, digital intermediate to the sound, whatever the prints are, the duplications, making of the trailer, the video master, the duplications, the tape finish, whatever the grade is going to be, the dubs, the digital visual effects, the sound post-production, stock edit and post-sync edit. There's going to be ADR or narration recording or mix, or it's final mix, temp mix, stereo mix, and your DVD mix, mix stock, miscellaneous, music fees, commission fees, your composing fees, musical research, pre-existing music, your rights clearance, your license fees, your royalties, so on. Publicity stills, post-production, it can be several different areas usage for that. Delivery, whatever the delivery requirements will be to the total post-production cost. And then your total below-line costs are going to go right there. So then your indirect costs are going to be getting close to the finality of the budget template, which is the audit investor, your co-production, your tax accountant, offset cash flow lenders, your bank fees, any other company miscellaneous fees, your overheads, whatever necessary. So your total indirect costs will then next be added up total right there. So when you're putting your budget, all the numbers together, you put them as certain different rates, a percentage of what, which is completion guarantee, contingency, and then your finance and state agency fees, broker underwriting, to the actual finance charge, finance total, marketing, and SPA, AG production levy as a percentage of the whole entire shoot, post-production, and production expenditure budget. It's going to go right there. So then, as broken down into actual numbers, these are just numbers I've put together. We didn't use these at all, just something I wanted to show for this purpose, is a television cast payment. So an actual payment of one of those budget items as what these were and what they are. Now this is something like how we actually calculated them out to be. So say you have a catchment or award minimum of a certain area, minimum of 3 hours, with the basic negotiation fee equals up to be 23. The rights loading fee with the repeats of FTA is 60%. So with the ancillary 2.5%, that equals 13.80 plus the 0.58. And if it's overseas residuals outside the U.S., it's going to equal 4.60. So the actual contracted fee ends up being 41.98. Plus, if there's any holiday pay, total remuneration plus that is 45.47. So the superannuation at a 10% is 4.55. The main points I wanted to look at on this is the total remuneration is a player at a daily is 4.18 compared to the weekly of 1.76, so it's a lower rate. So to get an idea of what you're looking at, you're comparing one class item at a weekly rate of 1.76 to 1.86 and 2043 are all the three ones you compare when you're looking at what you're going to be charging for an actual player. Thank you for this presentation.